Welcome to the She Slays the Day podcast with Dr. Lauryn Brunslick. Direct, soulful, comedic, advice for female chiropractors' most stagnating questions. Let's talk business, marriage and relationships, momming, and self-development. Here's your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunslick.
Hey everyone, this is Lauryn Brunslick, and I am your host of the She Slays the Day podcast. I'm super pumped that you're spending this time with me, so thank you. Weekly slays are live now, y'all. So, okay, if you don't know what this is, you're totally left out. Oh my gosh, FOMO. No, so this was a weird brainchild that I got on a run. I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about the fact that I do a lot of my thinking on runs, and that's where my friends will get really weird-winded voicemails from me. But anyway, so I got it after someone had sent me a review saying, I wish I could have you on speed dial to kick me in the butt and tell me to take a chill pill. And I was like, haha, that'd be funny. And then, then mile after mile, I was like, oh my gosh, what if I could just send them little blurbs of you go girl, he's a jerk. I don't know, all the other stuff you say to your friends. So these are short, little, inspirational, kick-ass emails from me, and they're going to get delivered Sunday nights to your inbox, so you can not only start out your Monday with a fun little goal and focus for the week, but also to have you chuckle. Because honestly, I think a lot of times we take this whole self-growth thing a bit serious because it's for real hard work, and if you're not crying while you're doing self-growth, you're probably doing it wrong. But sometimes hopefully we can laugh. So if you haven't signed up yet, do me a favor and do that. Go to sheslayspodcast.com/besties and you will get these free little fun emails as well. Speaking of besties, this review is so sweet. I mentioned it last week that I thought she didn't actually get it submitted, and it ended up being this voicemail in my DMs, and it made my day, but it came through. So she did do something right. So it is titled Jumped Through Hoops to Review. And this is by Jessie, oh gosh, how do I say that last name? Lillejord? I don't know. Close enough. So it says, Dr. Lauryn was totally worth it. I literally had to watch a YouTube video to figure out how to leave a review for this podcast. Now, I wasn't originally a big podcaster, and I certainly don't love listening to all things chiropractic, even though I'm a chiropractor. Yeah, me too, girl. But my dear friend, Dr. Ashley Elmer, suggested I have a listen and said she wasn't dry like most chiros. Not her words, mine. Oh, just throwing Ashley under the bus. Where I go with this is to tell you that Dr. L is actually hilarious and full of tangible content. Where was she when we were all learning the business side of chiro? Oh, wait, we were never taught. Ooh, tangent. Oh, she just preached. Anyways, thank goodness for this woman. She's making chiropractic fun and professional. I'm beyond pumped that she has the courage to change perspective while laughing along the way. Heart emoji, Jessie, 5 stars. Boom. Jessie, thank you. If you guys, that it seriously made my day. I really, really appreciate it. And if you're going to leave me a review like that, you bet your ass I am going to read it on the episode. And actually, Jessie, whenever you get around to listening to this episode, send me a DM with your address and I will hook you up with some free She Slays the Day stickers, just because that's freaking awesome. And I appreciate your willingness to learn how to post reviews you'll use that hopefully again in life. So today's guest, I am so excited. If I would have known how much I talked about the Enneagram just publicly, I probably should have had her on episode 2 or 3. But today's guest is Ashton Whitmoyer-Ober, and she's an Enneagram coach. So if you haven't heard me talk about the Enneagram, or maybe I didn't say that word, but I said I'm a 3. That's all Enneagram terminology. So if you've been living under a rock, this episode's going to be great. And maybe if you've taken a quiz, this will also really help your further understanding. So she has a degree in psychology and master's in community psychology and social change. In addition, she has a background in running a successful retail small business and now coaches people just like you and I to help find their Enneagram type and how to use it to their benefit to be awesome and successful. So before we get into that discussion, though, I have to tell you about something awesome. If you haven't checked out the page, sheslayspodcast.com/savings, you need to. So we've got 10% off the beautiful spine and musculoskeletal system watercolor paintings of Sandy Spines. I have her artwork in my clinic. They're gorgeous. So check out her gorgeous Etsy store for not just 10% off, but a free sticker when you use promo code SheSlays. We also got you 20% off your first month of health and fitness coaching with Megan Sanvey. If you don't know who she is, go listen to episode 10, where I just let my embarrassing side show and all of my insecurities. You're going to hear her helping me through some of my own, mental bullshit that I carry around my weight and body image. And she can help you with your bullshit too. Yeah. So mention She Slays when you're doing your first intro call and you'll save 20% off your first month. And then lastly, one of my favorite new media resources we added to our pediatric and prenatal clinics in 2019 is something called the Progressive app by Connected and Inspired Media. So this app was actually a callback to Ashley Elmer up in the review. She was one of the founders of this app. So it helps you, the doctor, save time in delivering things like stretches and exercises and other educational tools to the pregnant women and the moms and dads in your clinic. So, and of course, save 20% off your first month by mentioning, you guessed it, She Slays. So now that we've done that fun part, let's all bow our heads in prayer. Unless you're driving or exercising or doing anything else that it would be dangerous for you to bow your head. You don't bow your head. But if you're currently loading the dishwasher or folding laundry, go ahead and just stop for 30 seconds, take a breath, and be present with me. God, if you wanted each of us to be put in a box of a personality, you probably would have tattooed it on our asses. So as we indulge in this awesome conversation on the Enneagram, please remind us that this is just a tool to better understand ourselves and how to be fulfilled on earth. We believe you want that for us. This is supposed to be fun, but also to do the work of facilitating your purpose for us. Don't let us get too buzzworthy on I'm a 3 and restrict us from the growth that you have intended for us. So you're awesome. You know what you're doing. I think you're very cool. Amen. With that, here is my conversation with Enneagram coach Ashton Whitmoyer-Ober. Okay, so Ashton, I am so excited that we finally got on the call together. Okay, I just have to share with people before we intro, and you tell us all your jazz, how in tune we are energetically. So we have, was it scheduled 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
We both checked. Mercury was not in retrograde.
It wasn't, but it felt like it.
It really did.
It was insane.
All day long. I remember just sitting at 1:30 and I was just telling my husband, I'm like, I'm just sad. He's like, why are you sad? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel off.
I know.
So we were scheduled to record that night and you told me, like, I'm sorry. I just can't do it either. And I'm like,
I was having a day. I remember that. And it was drama at work, which just drains me anyways. And I was like, how am I going to record this call and be like, oh yeah, and the Enneagram, it's amazing. Even though my life sucks right now.
Okay. So why don't you kind of give us your background, how you got, because I know you have lots of jobs, how you kind of got into this Enneagram wing of your life. You see what I did there? Wing? Huh?
Yeah, I liked it. I like a good pun. So I am a certified Enneagram coach, but it is, like you said, just one of many hats that I wear. I have my bachelor's degree in psychology and my master's degree in psychology. And so psychology has kind of always been my area of expertise, I'd say. So, in classes and stuff that I took, we always were taught different personality tests like Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinders, things like that that do a really good job of telling you who you are. But what I felt was missing was these tests would tell you who you are. And then that's kind of just it is what it is. That's who you are. And then they didn't give you any tools for like growth or anything. And when I discovered the Enneagram, I was like, this is amazing. This is what I've been missing, because not only does it give you a tool for how to grow and be your best self, but it doesn't just tell you who you are. In fact, it doesn't even tell you who you are at all. It tells you why you do the things that you do. And so the motivation behind the behaviors. So two people can do the same thing, but it's the motivation behind why they're doing it that might be different.
Oh, yeah, that is, I never knew that aspect of it, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a rumor, I don't remember what podcast it was on, but the woman talking was like an Enneagram. Well, no, she was a therapist. That's what she was.
Mm-hmm.
And she was asked about the Enneagram, and she said that the Enneagram, the fact that it's like public knowledge now, is kind of insane to her, because it used to be like this language that only mental health experts would like really know about.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a complete rumor?
Yeah. And so a lot of people ask me, like, why do you think that it's become so popular? Because I was talking to a coworker about it, and he was saying that back in the 80s, it had a surge again. So it was brought over to the United States in about the 60s. In the 80s, it kind of had a surge, and then it died down. And then recently, as you know, and your listeners probably know, it's been hugely popular on social media. And so that literally is what I tell people all the time is social media didn't exist before, right? And so somebody grasped this concept of, we're going to post this publicly on a public platform where people can tune in and, read things that resonate with them. And it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, it's, I've had multiple people who have taken it and said, I have never felt like a test understood me, or like a personality test understood me this well. So yeah, that makes sense. That's insert social media and you have a really good, I don't even want to call it a personality test. It's probably not a personality test, but
yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, of the test. Okay, so I interrupted you. So how did you then, so you learned about the Enneagram. So how did you start becoming a coach?
Yeah, so I work in, I don't know if I would call it the mental health field, but I work in the nonprofit world for my state's coalition against sexual violence. So that's kind of my first area of expertise is intimate partner violence and sexual violence prevention. And so when I started researching and learning about the Enneagram, I just was kind of doing it for myself because I loved, I had graduated and I needed something to do with my life. And so I decided to do that and started posting what I learned on my Instagram account, which is Enneagram Ashton. And so then through that, I started having multiple people message me and asking them to help them figure out their type. Do you do coaching? What can you help me with this area of my life? I'm feeling really stressed out and how do I grow through that? And so I was like, you know what? This is kind of, I am a psychologist. When I work with people on healthy relationships, I am coaching them through that. And so I might as well take that step to become a certified Enneagram coach.
Got you. Okay, so let's jump into it because anybody who doesn't know anything about the Enneagram right now is going what the F is the Enneagram? Will you just tell me? I'm going to let you describe it however you want.
So the Enneagram is an ancient typing tool. And so Ennea stands for 9 in Greek, and gram stands for a picture or graphic. And so those of you who aren't familiar with the Enneagram, it literally is a circle with lines on it. And so the lines depict the 9 different types and the connections within those types. So that all sounds really, really confusing and hard to explain without actually like showing the image in front of me.
Yeah, the ADD in me is literally trying to stay super present and not look for that image on my phone.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Like, oh, I want to see it.
We'll get it up there for your listeners so that they can see it and make the connection, because each type, so there are 9 types, and each type is then connected to 2 numbers. And we call those numbers where they go in growth, when they're experiencing growth, and then their stress line. So where they are experiencing stress. So for example, I'm a 2, which I know we'll get into the numbers specifically, but I'm a 2, which means that I'm the helper. And when I am experiencing growth, I take on healthy qualities of a 4, which is the individualist. And when I am stressed out or in a period of stress, I take on the negative qualities of an 8, which is trying to gain control over my situation. And
I'm so glad to hear you didn't just say 1 and 3, because I know we're going to get to wings.
Yeah.
But, like, I thought that was it, is that like I'm a 3, and I thought like I could only ever go between a 2 and a 4. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I got a lot of 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But so threes and 8s, I mean, I feel like we could talk about this for hours. 3s and 8s are sometimes mistypes. So then there are some types that can look similar, because again, it's that behavior. So you might want to feel like you need to be in control, but is that because you want to be seen as valuable, like a 3, or because you have this fear of like not being able to be in control, which is like an 8?
Oof. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it can be challenging.
Yeah, I was going to say, can I be both? Mm-hmm. Is it too much to go through 1 through 9 like quickly?
No.
Okay.
No, I think that's helpful for people. And obviously this isn't going to be like an all-encompassing description of all 9 types, but it's just a place to get started. So I was trained by Beth McCord, who is YourEnneagramCoach.com. And so a lot of different teachers and Enneagram experts use different titles of the type. Sometimes you might see, like for one, you might see the reformer, or you might see the moral perfectionist, which is what I'm going to use. But just know that the types are all the same. So one is the moral perfectionist. So they are motivated by a need to feel good, or motivated by a need to be good and feel good maybe, but to be seen as like a good person. So they are rule followers. They are the ones who like order and structure. Some people call them perfectionists, but it's not necessarily like a perfectionist in that everything needs to be like orderly and clean. It's whatever is perfect to them in their minds.
Okay.
And so there are some ones who like say, I don't care if my house is chaotic, because that's what feels right to me. Mm-hmm. So they want to be good, be right, and to be seen as somebody who has their shit together. Yeah. Anything else you want me to share about the types?
No, I think that's good. So then,
okay. So the 2s are the supportive advisor, also sometimes called the helper. And so the 2s are motivated by a need to feel wanted or loved. And so they are often known as givers as well. And so a big downfall of 2s is, are they giving to receive appreciation, or are they giving because they genuinely want to help somebody out?
So you're not a 2 if you're doing it just to get appreciation.
Oh no, you can be a 2, but you can be an unhealthy 2. Because a lot of 2s just want to hear that appreciation. And so 2s really have to like check their heart, check their motivations behind why they're helping somebody. Like, are they helping someone to receive that recognition, or are they helping someone because they actually want to help them?
Gotcha.
So 3s are the successful achiever. They're motivated by a need to be seen as valuable. And so 3s are interesting because they can look a lot like 8s, but they actually have a lot of feelings involved.
And everyone, you heard her say it. I do have feelings. It's like a
you
running
just
joke
are
on the
going to hide
podcast,
it.
where I'm like, am I a sociopath?
That's funny. That's funny. And so sometimes they can struggle with vanity because they want to be seen as the best at everything that they do. And because of that need to feel valuable or be seen as valuable.
Damn.
You're nodding your head.
I know. I'm like, oh, okay, I think I need coaching. All right, let's move on to 4s.
Yeah. So you can see like in all of the types too, where like, I always say the Enneagram is not this like warm and fuzzy thing that is making everybody feel great about themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Like when I first read the thing about 2s and I was like, oh shit, am I actually like why do I always volunteer to do everything at work? Like, why do I do that? And so like, it causes you to really like think about why you're doing things. And that's the part of like the self-growth and the self-actualization that can occur through the Enneagram.
Okay.
Anyways, the 4 is the romantic individualist. And so they are motivated by a need to feel significant or unique. And so they want to, it's interesting because they want to stand out, but they also kind of want to be like the black sheep. So it's an interesting, 4s are hugely creative and artistic people. They really want to latch on to their individuality. And so they want people to see them for who they are.
Okay.
And not for like what the world tells them they should be.
Okay.
5s are the investigative thinker. So they are motivated by a need to be seen as capable and competent. And so they are typically more reserved than other types. They are most of the time introverts. I'm waiting for somebody to prove me wrong because I don't think I've met an extroverted 5 yet.
Really?
So they are mostly introverts because they keep everything to themselves. And that's mostly knowledge. So I always call them like the walking Google searches. That you can ask them anything and they will either have the answer or they'll find it. The thing about that, their biggest downfall is they keep everything inside. And so they have a tendency to explode at times when they aren't effectively communicating their wants, needs, desires, etc. The 6s are the loyal guardian. So the biggest stereotype about 6s is that they struggle with anxiety, and absolutely they do. But, that's not the only type that struggles with anxiety. And that's not the only thing about them. So they are motivated by a need to feel safe and secure, which obviously like goes hand in hand with anxiety. But they want to feel comfortable, to feel safe and secure in whatever they do. And so the loyal part is that they are loyal almost to a fault. They will stay in jobs longer than they should. They'll stay in relationships longer than they should, even like friendships that they've had for years and years and years. And so, that can be really great to relationships, but also can be a downfall for them. And they do worry a lot.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of 6s in your coalition work with like, I'm not blanket statement.
No, it's fine.
Of like, do 6s stay in traumatic relationships longer? But like,
yeah, and that's a really good point because I don't work with victims anymore. I used to. And so I wish that I would have had the language of the Enneagram when I was working with them, because I think that it would have been interesting to see the trauma associated with people and how that affects Enneagram. Yeah. Now, there are conflicting views about if your Enneagram type is with you from day one, or if it's something that is developed. I am part of the tribe that believes that it is with you from day one. And then when you're going through traumatic experiences, how you relate or how you work through them is based off of your Enneagram type. You can also see this a lot like, 9s will go to 6s when they are stressed. And so sometimes people have a difficult time figuring out their Enneagram type if they're living in a constant state of stress.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So 7s.
7s are the entertaining optimists. These are the most outgoing type on the Enneagram. Again, there can be that whole introverted extroverted thing is tricky, but there can be some introverted 7s, but it's not very common because they are driven by a need to experience new things. And so they'll always want to try to find something new, a new experience. They are kind of burying like pain. So they don't ever want to like sit with painful experiences. They want to cover it up with something fun and joyous and happy. And so they are the ones who are like spur of the moment types of people. They're like down to do whatever, whenever. They don't need any time to like process or plan.
Okay. For a second there, I was like, I could be 7. And then you said that. I'm like, no.
Well, 3s and 7s look similar sometimes.
It's just because
but that is a huge thing that is different there. 8s are the protective challengers. So they, like I said earlier, are motivated by a need to be in control. So control of like themselves, their situation, their environment, and they fear kind of like being harmed. They struggle with vulnerability. They never really want to like sit and identify their feelings. They often have walls up. They're extremely assertive. And so the biggest downfall I see about 8s is that sometimes they don't recognize who they're talking to or who they're communicating with, and just assuming that everybody communicates in the same ways that they do. Okay. And so one of the biggest thing I hear from people about 8s is that they think that their 8 friend is yelling at them when in fact that's actually just the way that they talk. And so not like understanding that some people might not be able to like handle the harshness in their tone as much as they do because they don't think that they're yelling or being harsh with their tone at all.
Yep. I am trying so hard not to just totally derail this whole thing and again turn it into a personal coaching thing of like, it's not like if you know me, you know I love you, so you should know like I didn't mean it that way when I said it. Like God. Anyways, 9s.
So 9s are the peaceful mediators. So they are motivated by a need to keep the peace around them and to eliminate all conflict. So they hate, pretty much despise any sort of conflict because it's messing up the peace that's around them. So they are hugely empathetic. I always say like everybody wants to be friends with a 9 because they are like, just seem to be such nice people. But they're also professionals at playing the devil's advocate. So if you want somebody to give you an answer on what you should do, like don't go to a 9 because they will make you create a pros and cons list and you'll be looking at all sides of the story. And you're like, no, you should have told me that I'm not supposed to be friends with that person anymore because they did this to me. So I don't want to see another point of view.
Yep. Got it. Okay. So I, can see myself in so many of them. And so I have so many questions. I'm trying not to ask 7 at the same time. Okay, so how do you recommend people find out their type?
So there's this whole thing about tests because a lot of people, when they're first figuring out the Enneagram, they go and they take a test online. And I don't have anything against tests. I think they're great tools, but that's not where you should begin or where you should land. Because when we're taking tests, sometimes we answer questions in the way that we want others to perceive us versus who we are or really what we do. And tests are almost marking like those behaviors instead of like the motivation behind the behaviors. With that being said, I think that YourEnneagramCoach.com does a great job at their test. But again, I wouldn't land there. So if you get an answer that your top 3 scores are like 3, 7, and 8, I wouldn't just land like, oh, it said I'm a 7, so I must be, or it said I'm a 3, so I must be a 3. It's important to read all of the ins and outs of the top 3 or top 2 types to really see which one resonates with you and go from there. Because again, it's motivation based. And so there are things that you might not even realize about yourself until you are reading some of those things. Like I said earlier, like, am I volunteering to help all the time? Like, what is my motivation behind that?
Okay. So once you kind of find the one that you resonate with the most, then do you go to the chart, and the chart, like the circle chart, and that will tell you where you go in times of growth and stress? And if you chose the right one that you resonated with, those should feel really true?
Yes. So when people are struggling to figure out their type, I always recommend to think about how you are when you're stressed out.
Okay.
And so, for example, if I was struggling with my type and I was able to say like some things that I do when I'm stressed, like I need to be in control of my environment, I become a little bit more assertive, then I'm like, oh, that sounds like an 8. And then I can look and see, oh, 2s go to 8 when they're stressed.
Okay.
So it's just another way to figure out your type and to understand yourself better.
Yeah. Are there some people who are just non-typeable? So like my husband got a 5-way tie. So again, he looked at the test. He got a 5-way tie for like first place, and then a 2-way tie for second place. And then I think 8 was probably like his last one. That didn't get any points. And so then I was like, oh, I learned that you're supposed to like look at the fears and the motivations behind them, and that the tests are well. And then he looked at it and he's like, I can see myself in all of these. And then I told him he was annoying and like that the Enneagram wasn't for him.
Oh yeah. So, it's interesting because I literally could sit here and say things about every single type that resonate with me.
Mm-hmm.
So like 1s, I need to like have things in a specific order. 2, I'm a 2. 3, I am like an entrepreneur at heart. I've had multiple businesses. Like I have this need to
right now
succeed. Yeah. I have like 25,000 jobs right now. 4s, I, am hugely empathetic. I can be creative. I'm a musician. 5s, like I said, researching the Enneagram. I'm obsessed with researching. I loved writing my 100-page thesis for grad school because it was like totally up my alley. 6s, I struggle from anxiety. 7s, I can be like really personable and outgoing. 8s, if I need to be assertive, I can. And 9s, I am a pretty good mediator. So like I have traits of myself in all of the types, but again, it goes back to the motivations behind doing things. And so what resonates the most? And it might not take like 30 minutes to figure it out. It might even take some people 6 months. I have people that have been working with me for 2 months and they're still like wrestling with what type are they? And we're just going through the process together to figure it out. To have a second, it's nice for them to have a second perspective on some of their things.
Can I ask a semi-asshole-ish question? I'm going to.
Yeah.
You're like, no. Okay, so for somebody, when you say that, there's somebody who's spending 2 months plus trying to figure out what their type is,
Mm-hmm.
my brain goes to, well, who the heck cares that much? Like if it's nice and semi-easy, great. But like, dude, move on with like growth in life. Like stop waiting 2 months trying to figure out your Enneagram.
So yeah. And let me tell you, that person, it's hard for me because a lot of the time I can sit there and say pretty confidently what type they are.
Mm-hmm.
But, and can you see me? Sorry. When you're not supposed to type somebody. And so like, that's really important for me to sit there and not be like, hey, you're actually a 9.
He or she
yeah.
is. You know what this person is?
Typically just because of like the patterns and the things that they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not supposed to type somebody because you don't actually know the motivations behind their behaviors. Just this weekend, my mom and my sister were like, hey, we think you're a 3. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? Like,
was this an intervention?
Yeah. I was like, I am the expert here, you freaks. So what are you talking about? And it was my birthday. And so my mom had just gotten me like a shirt that said the helper, the helper, the helper. And then like a hat that said 2. And she was like, I think I need to change the stitching on the hat because I think you're a 3. And I was like, just because I have 25,000 jobs right now does not mean that I'm a 3. Like that is not the same thing. I was like, remember, it's motivation. And so if your listeners take anything away from this, it's the motivation behind the types and why it's important to not type somebody, because you can see multiple people doing something and not knowing the motivation behind why they're doing it.
That makes sense. Okay. So what's up with the wings?
Yeah. So your
wings, growth and stress thing.
Yes, your wing is on either side of your Enneagram. So a common misconception is that it can be just like your second favorite number or whatever, but that's not the case. So I have a lot of people that comment on my things. They're like, I'm a 9 wing too. And I'm like, that's not possible, in a nice way, obviously. But it's because your wings are on either side of your type. So an ideal type who is healthy and working towards growth would be able to access both numbers on either side. And you're going to want to access, like, obviously the healthy side of those types. So for me, I definitely lean more towards the 3, but I have some 1 tendencies as well. And so part of my growth is being able to access the 1 wing more frequently to pull out some of those qualities.
Okay. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's in you. And like you said, so part of growing is like, if I were a 3 and I was like, no, I can't be 4. You would be like, yeah, you can. You're just like, it's naturally, like if I told you I can't be a 6, you might be like, well, that's possible type of thing.
Yeah.
But like, since I'm a quote unquote 3, then like it is in me somewhere. It just may need to be nurtured to come out more often. Okay. That's a really good. This is good. This is really helping me. Thanks. I actually don't even have a podcast. I just did this to bribe you on. Like, this is all just for me. Okay. So the next question I have then is, and I kind of alluded to it when I asked about like the victims, and I didn't mean it to be a dick. Any of the
no, it's fine.
6s out there are like, but are there more common types for entrepreneurs versus non-entrepreneurs, I guess?
Yeah. So I think that it's probably more common to see 3s being entrepreneurs just because they are typically like goal setters and goal achievers. They're driven by kind of like other people's views of them. And so they want to like be seen as successful. So 3s are probably the most obvious type for entrepreneurs, but anybody can be an entrepreneur, right? And it's part of like nurturing those characteristics. So like me being a 2 and being an entrepreneur, I have to rely heavily on my 3 wing to be able to set those goals and achieve them. For 9s, I always think of 9s because 9s are sometimes called the sloth because they're slow to get started. They're typically the type on the Enneagram that procrastinates the most. But when they're in a really, really healthy spot, they go to the healthy characteristics of a 3. And then they are able to like knock things out of the park.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I'm just wrapping my head around all of this. So then, is there a type when you're coaching that everybody wishes they were? You said like that it can be kind of brutal reading your type and being like, oh God, is that me? But like, is there a type that everybody like wishes they were?
Everyone wants to be a 9. That's really what I have experienced anyways, is that people want to be a 9. And when they want to be a 9, usually they aren't a 9. And so we have to work through that.
To them gently.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. You're not.
I mean, people definitely like being seen as 2s as well. And I think that's why for a while I was fighting it. I was like, I'm not a 2. I feel like everyone's a 2. And like, I don't know, I don't want to be like everyone. But then looking back onto those motivations, it was very clear to me that I was a 2. Yeah, most people love the idea of being a 9 just because they are peaceful and warm and cuddly, and they're all about, making other people feel at peace as well. And so that's typically one that I see often.
Okay. So all right, so you go through this process, you find out where you are in growth, you find out where you're in success, you find your wings, and you feel like you understand. You get a baseball cap with your number embroidered on it. What do you do with that information then?
Yeah. So it depends how far you want to take it, right? Like I work with a lot of people who are like struggling within their type, or maybe they are living in more of a stressful spot of their type and they want to get to a place of growth. And so you can work on that. You can work on specific areas. One of my favorite things about the Enneagram is being able to relate to other people. And so I think it's easy when you're reading a book about the Enneagram to just read ahead to the chapter that's about you. But I think even more so, it's important to learn about other people and other types so that you can know how like a 2 and a 7 relate to each other and how that friendship could work or how that romantic relationship could work. I am a researcher at heart, so I will always say, like, keep digging in and learning more about you and about the people who are around you. But it's really what you want to do with it and what you want your Enneagram journey to look like.
Yeah, it makes sense that, like, because I mean, this isn't my first rodeo with, I'm a personality test junkie, self-help book junkie. And I would say now compared to like 4 years ago, before I understood like my strength finder, my disc and my Enneagram, it's just kind of a shortcut to understanding, well, you've said it a bunch of times, like my motivations. But then once you understand your underlying motivations and fears in life, it just kind of adds this multiple layer of like other things just make more sense.
Yep.
So like if I'm very sad because I went to a conference, like just know, like I can go like, okay, why am I sad? It can help me get out of it faster if I'm able to like fall back on what I know about myself, right? Like It just kind of makes life easier. It's almost, I mean, this is taking personality and dumbing it down a lot, but like, it's almost like knowing your like body type and what clothes look good on you. And it's like, we don't have to, but shopping is going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
And you're going to grab clothes that totally don't look good on you. And then you're going to risk getting sad. And then you're, so like, it just kind of helps you get in and out of tough situations more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So one final question. This has been so good, by the way. Thank you.
Awesome.
So much. I want something ridiculous that people can like, because I go through the 1 through 9. I've heard it so many times and I can never remember. So like, what are like a Disney princess of each type or like something like that I could be like, okay, 3 is this person, like, because I need a visual because words just aren't sticking in my head.
So before I go through the Disney princesses, I just want to reiterate that it's
you can't type
hard to type people. But because this is for fun, right? There are some characteristics that we can see in certain Disney princesses. It's just the way that it is. So for ones, which remember I said are the moral perfectionists, I chose Moana for that.
Yeah.
Because Moana is driven by justice. They want to be seen as good, right? She struggles with, Moana's like my favorite Disney movie. She struggles with wanting to be seen as good to her parents and to her family. And so that's why I would pick 1 for Moana.
A lot of people, rule breaker, I tell you.
I know she is. And so I don't know what to say about that. A lot of people will automatically say like, oh, well, Cinderella's 1 because she's like into order and cleaning, but like she was forced to clean. She was forced.
I learned this, that ones are not necessarily tidy.
Right. So 1, Moana. For 2s, I picked Snow White because of the helper in her. Mm-hmm. So I just think of like her helping the 7 dwarves, just being like this kind and generous person, wanting to like take them in and take care of them as Snow White.
Yeah, perfect.
For 3, I picked Mulan because she wants to be the best and she wants to be the perfect daughter. She wants to be, this hero in her community, and she wants to be like the first female, right? And so I just see her as being like this kick-ass, take charge type of person.
Yeah.
Is it okay that I'm swearing on here, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, whoopsie.
I didn't even notice. I'm so used to swearing. I didn't even notice. Did you just swear?
I did.
Kick ass. Oh.
Yeah, but earlier I said shit, you just never know. So for 4, I picked Sleeping Beauty because of the romanticism behind the 4s. And so she, wants to be unique and she wants to be loved for who she is. And so I just immediately thought of Sleeping Beauty for that one. 5, I picked Belle because of her love of knowledge. And so she, is always reading books, wanting to learn as much as she can, kind of keeping to herself in her community and not, I feel like I have all these songs in my head now.
I know. Yep.
I'm like picturing her
I'm
like
still on Moana
around with her book. Yeah. Oh yeah. 6, I picked Elsa. And so this one I could maybe catch some shit for, but she is super loyal, like loyal to her sister, loyal to her kingdom or whatever they call it. And so loyal that she removed herself from it because she knew she was a danger.
Yeah.
And so I think of that, and I think of, her being afraid of causing harm on the people that she loved and not being able to be a source of security. 7, I picked Ariel. So she's just, outgoing. And I mean, she freaking has like a lobster for a best friend. Like anybody who has a lobster for a best friend, I feel like has to be a 7. Whoever uses a fork in her hair. I mean, come on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So she like craves new experiences. She wants to have legs, right? Like, so she is craving the new world and everything. So yeah, that's why I picked Ariel for 7. For 8, I picked Merida from Brave because and to be honest, like I feel like I've probably seen this movie the least amount of times. But from what I do remember, she just was kind of badass and like, again, like kicking ass and taking names and wanting to make sure that nobody controlled her and she was able to like control her own path.
Yep.
And then 9 is where I put Cinderella because she does.
Yeah, I was going to guess, but I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Like, if I was wrong, I didn't want to.
Because she does want everybody around her to experience peace and comfort. And, she was like even really, really nice to her stepsisters, even that when they were like total jerks to her. Right. And her little animals, like she just wants them to be happy. And So yeah.
She has a mouse as a friend, not nearly as cool as a lobster.
I know. Gus.
Ashton, thank you so much. Tell people
Yeah.
where they can find you if they want more of you.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram. Follow along at Enneagram Ashton. And then you can visit my website at www.enneagramashton.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
She Slayers, I hope that I think it's normal that this would probably crack open a ton more questions. If you were brand new, I think we could have talked for 5 hours, mostly just about me and what my problems are with life and why I don't have emotions. But maybe we'll have you back in a few months.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So, all right. Until next week, She Slayers. Bye.